If you are looking to upgrade your closet for that last-minute holiday gift, check out Circle Rock Menswear at CircleRock.com today. Use the code ZONE25 today and receive a $25 gift card good for your next Circle Rock purchase. Again, that's CircleRock.com and use promo code ZONE25.
The Zone Coverage Podcast Network.
They may be drinkers, Robin, but they're also human beings.
Hell yeah, let's get stinko.
This is the Giles and the Goalie podcast as part of the Zone Coverage Podcast Network. With your hosts, Giles Farrell and Ben Remington.
Welcome to the Giles and the Goalie podcast. I am your host, Giles Farrell. Laughing across the desk from me is Ben Remington.
Hello.
Sporting a Santa hat.
Uh-huh.
Ben, a happy Festivus and a happy Christmas to you.
Happy Festivus and Merry Christmas as well, Giles.
Why did you make that so awkward?
I don't know. I didn't know what to say.
You can say the same to you.
Okay.
It's not hard.
That's easy.
That's what she said. Yeah, so this is our Festivus show. It's going to be a little different from our kind of normal structured show. We're just going to air out some grievances. We also got quite a lot of listener grievances that we're going to air out as well. So thank you to everyone who submitted their grievances that they wish to air. Most people went hockey-related, Minnesota Wild-related, which it's great. We're a Minnesota Wild podcast. I did see one or two food takes in there that I am. There's one that's right on the top of my head that, oh boy, hang on to that.
Can't wait.
Yeah, we're going to come to that in just a little bit. But first, as I alluded to at the end of last week's show, I did want to share the story of the best Uber driver I have and will ever have. Last weekend in Kansas City, we were celebrating Jamie's graduation. She is now a nurse practitioner, so that's a great accomplishment, especially considering all the work that she had to do to get there. That's not an easy thing to achieve. So, as expected, we did some celebrating the Saturday night after her graduation. So we're leaving our Airbnb, and we had to request 2 Ubers, and so the girls got in their Uber, and we were waiting for ours, which was just a few minutes behind.
Wait, there was 4 of you and you needed 2 Ubers?
No, there was me, Jamie, and then our 2 friends, and then Jamie's family.
Oh, okay.
Her mom, her aunt, her uncle. So
that's right.
We needed a few Ubers.
Headed down there as well.
So we waited for the Uber to pick us guys up, and this big pickup truck with a cab in the back pulls up. And so everybody gets in, and as I open the door to sit in the front, I am staring dead at Santa Claus. And now he just wasn't wearing a Santa hat and a beard. He had the full-on costume, red outfit, boots and all. And then to make it even better, he had Christmas lights hooked up inside the vehicle. Nice. And they weren't just your generic standard Christmas lights. They were blinking and everything.
Isn't that like a hazard?
Probably, but I didn't care. I appreciated the effort.
Fair.
And then he had the Christmas music blaring as well. Nice. So we got the full-on Christmas experience, and I thought, gee, if this was ever a modern sleigh ride, this would be it, because it was wonderful. And then even better, like, he had trivia for us to win a prize. We won a prize.
Nice.
So it was...
Was the truck red?
Sadly, no.
Oh, damn it.
I think it was just gray.
Oh.
So he was awesome. It was entertaining, had just puns for everything. So needless to say, he got a big tip from us. And so that just was the best Uber ride that I felt like sharing. So
Nice.
I even tweeted out a photo that I just took an Uber with Santa. So
Yeah.
you can check that out on Twitter at Giles Farrell if you can find it, because I tweet a lot. So
You know, it's not easy finding work sometimes these days, so Santa has to diversify a little bit.
yeah, so that especially as the night just went on, man, that guy must have just made a killing in
Oh, I'm
tips.
sure.
So yeah, so that's the fun part of the show.
Now the fun is over.
Yep. Now we're gonna just fire off complaints about everything. Since it is Festivus, we want to air our grievances. We've done this a few times before. One of which we even tried a live show, which
Try being the operative word there.
oh
Did
boy,
not go well.
That
We even did it at a real live radio station and everything.
yeah, back when we had a radio station,
Yeah,
which is right next door to where we are right
pretty
now.
much, yeah.
But yeah, so we're gonna air out some grievances. Do you want to start with hockey-related grievances?
Whew. Yeah, it all ties into the stuff that I know you're going to talk about. We've been accused recently of hating the Minnesota Wild. Shocking, I know, right?
Yeah. Try watching them.
Right, and so I think I don't have many grievances. This is the one that I've been thinking about for a while, and I thought about how in depth I wanted to go with this. There's a reason why it comes off like we hate the Wild. Because the Wild have really done their best in multiple facets, and I'll get to that, of pushing us away. And those of you who are fans of the Wild completely understand, because, as we've joked about, this team is Batman forever. This team's the same crap over and over again. And it got really hard, or it has gotten really hard to produce content for the Wild.
Yeah, it is.
And I gave up writing this spring, and having a child was reason number one for that. But the team was reason number two.
Yeah.
Really,
They're not
and
good.
I was kind of tired about writing about this team because it was just kind of the same crap over and over again. And not to say that that's not sports in a nutshell, because that is kind of sports in a nutshell. Been watching sports my whole life. I understand that's how it works sometimes. But even more so with this iteration of the Wild, in that it's just kind of the same story over and over again every year.
Batman forever.
It's Batman forever. And so, yeah, my grievances with the Wild, but also not just with the team. We've kind of alluded to this in other ways, shapes, and forms, but we had a situation this year where a fabulous, fabulous writer that we wrote with, Heather Rule, wrote with us at Zone Coverage, and wrote for another entity that she got credentialed through, and was basically told that if she continued to write for Zone Coverage, the team was going to revoke her credentials. And this might be news to some, but basically the Minnesota Wild's PR staff told her that she could not, even though she never used any quotes that she gathered well credentialed, she never used any pictures, information, etc. Just the fact that she was in the press box writing for this other entity, freelancing, because she's a freelance writer, that's what she does.
It's kind of what a freelancer is.
Right. And on the side, not even while she's in the building, she wrote for Zone Coverage. On the side, when she goes home at the end of the night, or
Right.
the next day on an off day. She did write for us on Mondays, so it was an off day for the Wild, on Sundays typically. They told her that she could no longer write for us, with us at Zone Coverage, if she wanted to continue to be credentialed. And so, as you might understand, this created a significant beef for Giles and myself. Because we love Heather. She does incredible work, and she works her tail off, and have a ton of respect for her, trying to make a career for herself in the writing world, especially as a woman. It's hard enough as it is. And what the Wild essentially did is said, because we don't like this website, due to a article that may or may not have been written a couple of years ago that was absolutely correct at the time, we're going to literally just take money out of this girl's pocket and say that she cannot write for this website anymore. And take away another opportunity for her to freelance. And you know what? I've never been huge on the whole getting credentialed thing. I would like to get the respect from other media that being credentialed kind of brings. But by and large, I don't need coach speak. I don't need players speak when I did my writing. I didn't want it at all. And I make poop jokes on Twitter. I don't deserve to be credentialed. But you know what? Heather does, because she's a legitimate journalist. And quite honestly, you do too, Giles. I mean, you did some fantastic work with the Iowa Wild when you were making trips down there. And I would have hoped that at some point that would have gotten some attention, would have gotten some respect. But not only do they not credential us, the zone coverage hockey team, as it were, last season, they slam the door in our face and further look to punish Heather on top of it. So if it comes off like we don't like the Wild, if it comes off like we're sick of this team and we've got a little bit of animosity, you're goddamn right. And that's my grievance.
I'm so happy this is the first grievance you picked to air. Man, it just warms my heart. Or maybe it's the coffee. I don't know.
It can be both.
Man, you really just teed off on why we don't necessarily care for the Wild.
It is Festivus.
And
this is the airing of grievances.
That's a good grievance to air. And my first grievance with the Minnesota Wild is at the hockey team themselves, in which be good or be bad. I am sick and tired of writing about a team that is stuck in the middle, and it just has the same storylines every year. And that's why, as you alluded to, it makes it horribly difficult to write on the Minnesota Wild.
Yeah.
And when you have limited roster turnover, that makes it horribly difficult to come up with new angles to write on. There's only so many times I can tell you that, Jared Spurgeon is magnificent or Alex Stalock is bad.
Right.
And yeah, we don't necessarily need that coach speak or hockey speak. Mm-hmm. The only thing I would ever find useful is, asking a player like what happened on a specific play and try to break it down so I can put words and some kind of, video post about what's supposed to happen. That would be the only useful thing I'd ever get out of talking to players.
Yeah.
Or
there is some use to it. I'm not saying there's not. There is some use to
right.
it. And I think, people who do a good job with their writing and come at things from a certain angle like you and Heather both can do, can definitely benefit from having that kind of access.
And yeah, and that's not to say I don't like the human interest storylines.
Yeah, see, I'd hate them. So.
I'd come with that. Yeah. Which I've done with the Iowa Wild, and I've done briefly at another entity as well. So and with covering the Gophers, I like doing that. So that's my first grievance.
Sure.
Is the Wild. I'm sick of them just being in the middle. It's horribly tiring, and it's just it comes back to the Batman Forever. It's just the same stuff on a different day.
Yeah, agreed.
You got another hockey grievance?
I'll keep this one very brief because it could go on forever. I fear, because I've already watched it happen with baseball, I fear that, and both of us have the same stance on analytics, and we really do like them. We really do enjoy them. But I fear it's going in the baseball direction where it starts off as something fun to further understand the game and something beneficial for the teams to use, et cetera, et cetera. And in baseball's case, I think it has, and in hockey's case, I think it's getting there, sucking the fun completely out of the sport. And you get to a point where the humanity is almost lost. It's not lost in baseball completely, but there's depending on who you follow on Twitter, there's a lot of human element, and I'm not just talking about umpires making terrible calls. There's a lot of human element that's missing from the game, where you'll see a manager make a move, and it's like, wow, that was ballsy, or that was interesting move, and then instantly 10 people on Twitter will absolutely crucify said manager for making the wrong move according to analytics. And that's just an example. That's just one example off the top of my head, where it's just like, Ned Yost does not understand baseball analytics, obviously, but he made a lot of ballsy moves, and he won a World Series because of it.
Ned Yost of the Verizon commercial.
Right, falling out of his tree stand. But it's things like that where I love analytics. I think it's great, and I look at them often. I use them when I was writing often enough. But I really, and you get, some folks that go so arrogant with it. It's like, oh, the secondary assist is completely meaningless. It's like, well, no, this is a passing sport. And the secondary assist is there because this is a passing sport. There's a reason why it's called tic-tac-toe. It's not called tac-toe. So it's stuff like that where it's just like, oh, secondary assists are completely noise. And some people even label it as that in their graphs. I'm not going to say his name, but you all know who I'm talking about. And it legitimately bothers me. And it's like, what, and I'm not going to play the you never played card, because there's plenty of folks, yourself included, that never played organized hockey but can very much understand it at a level that is equal to or greater than somebody who did play it organized like I did. Not that I ever went very far with it, but it dehumanizes a lot of things, and it really just sucks the fun out of things, and I fear it going that direction, and it just plays into that whole war of people that hate analytics, and it just really polarizes it. It just really, completely polarizes the two parties, and we've seen baseball go that way, and maybe things are a little bit better in baseball now. I don't know, but I don't want to see that happen in hockey, because I want to see analytics be able to be used, but I want us to be able to talk about hockey in a way that is accessible to everybody, because Lord knows the game could use more casual fans.
And not to repeat my point from earlier, but being able to do like a video breakdown of a play and kind of explain a hockey play to the very casual fans who might not get that, highly beneficial for helping growth in this sport.
Absolutely.
Because we have, maybe at a time or two on this podcast, explained how the NHL and their television entities don't actually do a pretty good job of promoting and growing the sport. So, that's a good one. Another good one. Another grievance that I have, I didn't actually write this down, but I just kind of thought of it you were talking, is, on the analytics, the NHL has been basically saying for some time now that they're going to be doing player tracking technology. They'll be starting that. And basically every owners' meetings we hear, oh, yeah, that'll be rolled out next April or whatever. And well, here we are. We're just still waiting for this player tracking technology to be rolled out. And when are you going to roll it out? And I have the sneaking suspicion that the NHL isn't going to be actually forthcoming with information on that.
Yeah.
They're basically just going to tell you things that you already know, like Connor McDavid is fast or
right.
Alex Ovechkin shoots hard.
Yeah.
Like, it's just going to be the same generic things that you already knew. So I don't want to say, like, what's the point, but it's just like, are you going to get with the program or not? And the NHLPA has apparently been against this.
Yeah. Because I think there's a pretty strong argument that there's a lot of leverage to be used against them if they have individual player tracking.
And again, what's it going to tell you? Victor Rask isn't good? I already know that.
Yeah.
As I watch Victor Rask fumble the puck.
Player tracking is going to tell us that Victor Rask is slow. Holy crap, this is new information. No, the Evolving Wild Twins tweeted almost the exact same thing today. They said, we highly doubt player tracking is going to be available to the public anytime. And they also said point number 2, when it is, if it ever is available, I don't think we're going to have a whole lot we're going to be able to use from it, if anything at all. And, to your point, I think this is the point kind of you're going with is, if you're the NHL, you have a sport that could benefit the most from individual player tracking. Baseball doesn't really need it. Football, it's set plays. We can kind of see what's going on. They do a little bit of the tracking in individual plays, but hockey is so fluid. It's so fluid. It would really benefit the most from having that kind of tracking. And if you're the NHL, be on the forefront for once. Do something that another league hasn't done for once. You know what I mean? Be ahead of the curve. And, it kind of ties into my analytics talk, but this is good information. This adds to good analytics and can be a lot of fun. And maybe it will bring in some casual fans, or maybe it will help some casual fans better understand the game, or just be an interesting statistics to have to hold. And just it shouldn't be this difficult to get the NHL to do something progressive.
Right. No, it definitely should not. All right, before we go on to our next grievance, we would like to remind you, as you heard at the top of the show, give a check out to CircleRock.com if you're needing a late holiday gift.
Kind of your SOL at this point, I feel like, Giles.
Well, unless you're like me and you have, you got 2 families to cover, so you have one later.
They are sold. There's a storefront that they can buy this from, correct?
Yes. In South Minneapolis.
Yes, there's a store
you can get that at.
You can search for.
Which is House of Style in Southwest Minneapolis.
Wonderful.
You can go check them out. But yeah, like I said, like if you are or know someone who's really into polo shirts like me, check out Circle Rock. They've got a couple of different polo shirts. They also have some cool sports stuff mixed in there. You get cufflinks from seats from like Yankee Stadium or the Montreal Forum or what have you.
Very cool stuff.
A lot of cool stuff that markets towards the sports fans like us. So yeah, again, go to CircleRock.com, use the promo code Zone25 and get a $25 gift card. Good on your next purchase.
Pick up something snazzy we can wear to Vegas.
Yeah,
there we
I
go.
should do that.
Yeah.
All right, back to grievances. They just showed the Matt Dumba Matthew Tkachuk fight from last year. Oh God, what up? Anyway, okay, what's your next grievance?
Well, I didn't really have much else besides that.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then I've got a few more to fire off here.
Okay.
My next grievance, we're going to keep it hockey related, is Alex Stalock. I'm sorry, man, but it's not so much against Alex Stalock. It's more against everyone who wholeheartedly defends him every day when it's just blatantly obvious that his better days, if he had any, are behind him.
Yeah, no.
And honestly, folks, why in the hell are you so quick to defend a goaltender who is below league average?
Mm-hmm.
What?
We're not talking about our Bulldog friends who...
Right.
It's a bit kind of at this point with them, and we love those guys. But yeah, there's plenty of folks out there that are just, just kind of defending him because he's a Minnesota kid, and the team, not to grind on them even more, but the team really does.
No, we're gonna grind on them.
Okay,
more.
let's do that. The team really tries to fluff him quite a bit, seeing as how he's a local boy.
Oh, just play that one of us card and play it a lot. Play it good.
Even Paul Fenton did it, which was weird because it's like. You've been
on like the last guy that should have been doing that.
You've been on the job for like 6 months, and you're just blowing Alex Stalock over the fact that he knows the area well, which is like the dumbest thing you could compliment a hockey player on. Seeing as and essentially giving that as the reason for giving him an extension that made no sense whatsoever.
Paul Fenton liked Alex Stalock because Stalock gave Fenton good directions to Tavern on Grand.
He pointed him in the direction of Yarusso's.
So that's why he liked him. I don't know that for sure. because we're not allowed to talk to anyone.
True.
But I'm sorry, like, at the time, sure, he was a decent signing to be your third goaltender, which that's what he is.
Yeah.
He's a third goaltender.
Yep.
He's not a backup goaltender. And due to Devin Dubnyk's unfortunate situation, he has been thrust into more starting roles, and it sounds like in January he's going to get more looks as Dubnyk will be away again for a little bit.
No.
So it just baffles my mind that we just continue to accept and defend Alex Stalock as a competent NHL goaltender. And, yeah, I get it. The guy's well-loved in the room. And as I said on a podcast earlier this season, when you're a guy who plays like that, you have to be good in the room. You're not going to be kept around if you're terrible.
Yeah.
Look at Paul Fenton. He was terrible.
Yeah.
And he was also a terrible human being.
Yes.
So he was let go
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah.
Like, it just... I should probably just stop railing on Alex Stalock at this point, but I just... It's Batman Forever, so I just keep coming back to it.
Is Alex Stalock the Tommy Lee Jones Two-Face of Batman Forever?
Oh, God.
Is it that bad?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, he is Tommy Lee Jones' iteration of Two-Face.
Okay. That's
with
fair.
the most weirdly colored shirts.
And purple face, which,
Yeah.
was kind of what they were going for, and I get it. Like,
It was pretty 90s looking, to
it
be
was very
honest.
90s looking. It was a very fuchsia face.
Another thing I want to air my grievances with is, which, again, we have done this time and again on this podcast, but I want people to hear it and know it. And maybe someday accept it in their hearts. The NHL on NBC is awful. And as I alluded to earlier, it does not do a good job of promoting and growing the sport, which is what we want, because this is right now a niche sport.
Sure.
And if people don't understand basic hockey concepts, then what's the point of trying to explain this basically so you can get people more involved?
Mm-hmm.
And as we found out like an hour and a half ago, Jeremy Roenick was suspended from NHL on NBC for inappropriate comments about coworkers.
God, what a knob.
As you can go find and read that and read into it what you will about what he said, but what I tweeted out was, I sincerely hope that the NHL on NBC takes the time to just evaluate its on-air talent in terms of the analysts as a whole. Mm-hmm. I said Catherine Tappan and Liam McHugh are good studio hosts.
Yes.
And Liam McHugh actually is really good. He does multiple sports for NBC as a host.
Mm-hmm.
But Mike Milbury,
Oh my God.
Roenick, Keith Jones,
Yeah.
I've never thought much of Anson Carter or Patrick Sharp.
They're okay.
They're fine, but it's just like, I think they're good for their role, but I think you need better lead analyst people.
Mm-hmm.
And for whatever reason, NBC thought well enough to, since Eddie Olczyk has been going through his cancer treatments, Mike Milbury has been promoted to the lead analyst next to Doc Emmerich.
Yeah.
Who thought of this? This is a terrible idea. You should be... I saw a video today of Mike Milbury back in 1978 on this day in history, or whatever day it was, or whatever year, of him going into the stands for the Boston Bruins and beating someone with their own shoe. That literally is what I feel like when I'm watching Mike Milbury be an analyst. He is literally entering my living room and beating me with my own shoe.
Yeah.
That's what I think of his analysis. And why you thought this guy was good enough to not only be an analyst on your network, but now to be the lead analyst on your number one TV crew is beyond me.
I think if NBC just canned Milbury, I think that
would be good enough.
That would be a good enough move. Would be like, okay, they get it. They're finally trying to reach somebody. But to your point, and I don't mind Ed Olchuk. I think he could be better, but Milbury just further exemplifies not having someone in the booth with Emmerich who's phenomenal, not having somebody who is really good with X's and O's to explain why things are happening to a casual viewer is such a huge loss for the NHL. The NHL is a niche sport because people don't understand it because not many people play it. As far as the American viewership, I mean, you're talking, maybe 3% tops have ever played any form of hockey. And you need to explain what is happening to that other 97%. And Milbury just rambles on with his dumb stories and his faux analysis of raving over gritty players and obvious madnisms that everyone else, obviously sees. Anybody who's watched the game for more than 5 minutes understands. They're missing out on that former player or whoever maybe that can make sense of the X's and O's, can be like a Tony Romo, who knows exactly what is going on in the game and can explain why it's going to happen or why it has happened to the viewer for them to better understand the game so they can feel like they're more a part of it and they can enjoy the experience more, in addition to Doc Emmerich's fantastic play-by-play. And they're just completely... NBC is, for whatever reason, not interested in that at all. And Roenick is good at mingling with the people, and we've seen him excel at that role, during some bigger events that they've done, some playoff stuff. But in the booth, or not in the booth, but in the pregame and intermission stuff, he's horrific. He's worse than Milbury as far as just spewing hot takes and saying dumb crap. And obviously, to this point, dumb crap is getting him suspended. So maybe we'll get lucky and he'll get the axe. But I just don't have a whole lot of confidence in NBCSN making any kind of good decisions other than Roenick offing himself, essentially.
Right. We have aired this out so many times. And I'm sure you're sick of it. It's just, I can't even watch it anymore. Like, I just don't even have the channel on. Like, when the Wild are on NBCSN, I have the game on. But when it comes time to before the game, intermission, after the game, I don't have it on.
No.
It's off. And I really can't say that for, other sports because they actually find people who are insightful and, entertaining. That's another thing that I have a problem with. The people they have are not entertaining.
Right.
They literally found just... I'll start over. Hockey players or people who are involved in the sport at any point are probably going to be bland when it comes to being on camera.
They're mostly Canadians, so
right.
It follows.
You do find some entertaining people from time to time, and I think I've said before, when he retires, PK Subban is perfect for this.
Right.
Because in addition to finding people who are insightful, you need them to be a little bit entertaining. Right. And that's what makes, NFL pregame, postgame shows entertaining.
Right.
Or, the NBA on TNT, inside the NBA. Those guys are entertaining. Because you don't know what Charles Barkley's going to say.
Right.
That's why you watch, to see what kind of crazy stuff Charles Barkley's going to say at Shaq.
Mm-hmm. And not crazy in a stupid way.
No.
To your point, two personalities that I can think of in addition to Subban baffles me why they haven't been used more in American NHL media. Ilya Bryzgalov.
Yes.
He is...
Everyone soaks up anything that guy says or tweets.
I get it that he's out there. He is way effing out there. Even by goalie standards, he's out there. But the guy is entertaining, and if you use him in... you don't want him to be your color commentator for a game. I get that. But if you just used him in some pregame, postgame stuff, I think it'd be phenomenal. By the same token, we don't know his future, but Bruce Boudreau probably doesn't necessarily have a future in TV, but how much better could you get than having him? I mean, last year, for instance, Wild are not making the playoffs. How do you not invite Bruce Boudreau to be in on anything at all? He was not on anything. And
and they're quick to get somebody who's
exactly. They're recruiting all sorts of players who have been eliminated, and sometimes coaches. How do you not pick up the phone and call Bruce Boudreau and say, "We don't care what the hell you say, we just want you on TV"? And, maybe you have to keep your finger on the bleep button, but at least he's going to say something interesting, unlike 90% of the people who cover hockey.
I do wonder when his time is done in the NHL, when he actually retires. I wonder if Bruce has a future on like Hockey Night in Canada.
He should be the new Don Cherry. He should be,
but
coach's
not
corner.
so much Don Cherry.
Well, no, I don't mean he should take up the mantle of being a racist curmudgeon, but I mean he should be that coach. And if you don't want to call it coach's corner, that's sacred, whatever, fine. But he should be the one doing that segment on Hockey Night in Canada because he's Canadian. He's phenomenal. Apparently my computer just started to randomly restart in the middle of the hockey game.
Some more grievances. Grievance with zone coverage editor-in-chief Tom Schreier, who at the 7:30 mark of the first period just offered Ben and I to come to the game. We're recording this during Monday's game against Calgary.
Thanks,
and
Tom.
Tom asked if we wanted to go in the middle of the first period.
After sending us a picture of the empty press box that they still won't let us in.
Yeah, not enough room.
No, there's not enough space up there for us.
Oh, wait, are they calling us fat?
That might be it. I mean, we should really think about some kind of discrimination suit.
They're calling us fat.
I bet.
Okay, so grievance with Ben's computer that just restarted, and we were watching the Wild game.
Yeah, that was really weird.
So now I'm going to scramble and see if I can spring my other computer into action. Sick.
It should get back up.
Two computers. It's Windows, man.
Yeah, that's true.
That's.
I have a quick grievance, and I just thought of it. This whole hating on the culture of hockey thing, and I get it. There are some problems. I'm not saying there aren't some problems with racism in hockey. I'm not saying that hockey isn't predominantly white, and I'm not saying that hockey isn't, filled with a lot of rich people. But having grown up in a, lower middle class house as I did, with a single mother at times, trying to afford my hockey, and working my way through paying for it myself, and not being the only kid doing that. I really take exception to all this stuff that makes hockey out to be some kind of uber elitist type atmosphere, and makes out every hockey person kind of from top to bottom as being some kind of raging douchebag that is just racist, and I get that this isn't necessarily what everyone is saying, but this whole thing that hockey culture is just like this rancid, toxic waste dump because not a lot of minorities are involved and not a lot of underprivileged folks are involved, I think is completely misguided, and I think there's a lot of really, really fantastic people involved in hockey.
Yeah.
And I know that I guess I'm sure people are going to say that in kind of in defense of their stance against hockey culture, but I just really don't like the broad brush of it. Is what I'm saying. The broad brush that hockey is awful, hockey has a culture problem, hockey is racist, hockey is elitist, hockey is a bunch of smug pricks. I really take exception to it because I was a poor kid that loved hockey so much that I got to play it, and my mom made it work despite her difficulties. And it really bothers me. It really, really genuinely bothers me that people want to smear hockey so badly that they're going to grossly exaggerate some of the issues that hockey has. I'm, again, not saying hockey doesn't have a few issues, but you're going to make it out to be like every locker room is just like a clan meeting, and every locker room is like some kind of, ultra elite, country club that they only allow white males in, and it's just completely bullshit. And it's completely wrong, and there are problems somewhere, but let's not say that this is 98% of the game like people want to make it out to be.
Shout out to the parents out there who do so much to make it work for those kids. 'Cause
yeah, absolutely.
It's
absolutely
by no means a cheap sport to play.
No.
And
not everybody who plays hockey is a rich kid. I mean,
right.
None of us North St. Paul kids were rich kids. There were some middle class kids, and there were some lower middle class kids like myself, and we made it work. We got driven to the games in our rusty, crappy cars, and we were wearing equipment that was years old and bought used, but we were there, and it just, and I really, I'll stop now because I'm gonna get worked up.
District 5 weren't rich kids.
You know, right? They're strapping Time magazine to their shins instead of shin pads.
Tom's trying to deflect blame because I told him he's now a grievance. Oh, he's trying to bribe me now with beer.
Oh, well, it's effective.
Tempting.
Yeah.
I can't, Tom. I'm sorry. Okay. So I do have a couple of other grievances I just want to briefly go on. Yeah, I told you it wasn't going to be anytime soon. My first grievance is with you. Apple is 1984.
Well, you didn't have to name them.
Well,
you're just giving him power.
It's a title.
I know.
I don't care. Like
That's fair. That's fair.
We've gotten so much material from him. Like we just keep.
It's true.
My grievance is with you, and this kind of piggybacks on what our friend Joe Booley was tweeting about the other day. Like, you know, if you don't like this podcast, okay. First of all, I am flattered that you called us the Best Wild podcast.
Yeah, that was nice.
Very flattering, and I'm glad we have that mark. But what the hell are soy boys?
I looked it up. It's supposed to be emasculating.
Okay.
We are men who do not have any masculine characteristics.
Okay.
You know what? Maybe that's fair. I am covered. Every inch of me is covered in hair except for some of the top of my head. But you know what? I maybe can't argue with that.
I didn't need to know that. The fact that you keep rewriting your ratings, not only with us, but with other podcasts.
Yeah. I think he's up to 5 or 6 updates on ours.
Theory.
Uh-huh.
Is this person the same person that we were chatting about in our Twitter DMs earlier that just hates everything?
That's possible. I don't think so.
And I think you were going to have a point on this too, but like, why is there so much hate for these podcasts? Like, clearly you listen to Minnesota sports podcasts, and I get it. Minnesota sports isn't exactly a sunshine and lollipops place to be. But, you know, and Joe said this, and he said it perfectly, so I'm going to echo what he said, but people put a lot of work into these podcasts, and that's us included.
Yeah.
You know, we've tried a lot of things. We've spent a lot of time trying to make this a decent, or as you said,
listenable,
an otherwise fine product to listen to. And so maybe the thing to say with you is, if you don't have anything nice to say, then don't fucking say it at all. So first, thank you for the up from 1 stars to 2 stars on the Best Wild podcast.
Moving on up.
But for the love of God, like, go find something else to do if you have time to not only rate every Minnesota sports podcast around here, rate it negatively, and then continuing to update your ratings as the years go on.
And if you want exuding positivity from somebody who tongues the butthole of the team that you like, listen to that godforsaken radio station then. Because that's all they do, because they carry the damn team, so they don't have a choice. They're never going to say a negative word, because they own the damn rights.
Right.
That's the benefit of podcasts, is we don't have to blow smoke up anybody's ass. So we don't blow smoke up anybody's ass.
And if you listen to the first part of the show, we did not blow smoke anywhere close to anyone in
There's
power.
no smoke being blown. So, and that's just it. Like, I don't know. This guy has become a bit for me, and it's just become funny at this point.
For us, and we've actually started cataloging.
But like the whole politics thing, like Giles and I are the furthest thing from politics. But whenever we like whisper a hint of politics on our podcast, he updates his goddamn review to slam us for being like something like neo-Nazi liberals, which isn't the case at all. And I went on a rant about this, I think like a year ago, for the same dickhead. And it's like, dude, you don't even know me politically. And if you did, you wouldn't say these things. And, you know, your political opinion is as much of a mystery as the direction of the Minnesota Wild.
Right.
So I don't know why he thinks that we're like this certain thing just because once in a while we might say, oh, Trump said something stupid. Like, yeah, that happens all the goddamn time. Like, you should be able to recognize that no matter what you feel about politics.
Yeah, like we talked about this once. We've kind of made it just a point to kind of keep politics away from this podcast just so we don't, you know, alienate anyone. So
Right. Very, very intentionally. Very
Right.
intentionally.
And
Because at the end of the day, we don't care about politics that much,
no, like it
and
just,
so we don't want to infiltrate. Don't want to inject it into our podcast.
So here's my big gripe, and this is why like I pay as much attention to sports as I do, is because I enjoy sports. I enjoy watching sports, and when
Yes.
I can, playing sports. I enjoy it, and it's a fun thing for me to do, and I also get to do it with family and friends. You get to sit and watch and have some fun. We're gonna go in a couple weeks. We're gonna go to Vegas. We're gonna watch football. We're
Hell
gonna
yeah.
drink and gamble. Like
Yes.
that's fun, and I do things that are fun because there's so much negativity out there just in the world in general. And the moment you open the door and you look into politics, you are just sucked into a goddamn black hole of negativity.
Oh, that's so bad.
And so this is why, like, I just watch as much sports as I can, or, just watch movies or anything that I enjoy. I want to do things that I enjoy. I don't enjoy politics.
No.
It's complete garbage.
Yes.
And so I don't immerse myself at all into it because I am tired of negativity.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to do things that I enjoy. Because you know what? When I get sucked into that negativity, it doesn't help my depression at all. So
Right.
why would I do that?
Same.
All right. Wow.
Do we need to stop?
Yeah. Break. Okay, so very quickly, 2 other grievances I have that aren't really hockey related, but I wanted to share. One is the post office. You have jerked me around so many times for not fixing my mailbox. It's tiring, and then I get it. This is an absolutely busy time of the year for post office. But the fact that my request to have my mailbox lock and key updated because my key broke in the damn lock, so you won't put mail in my box anymore, so I have to go to the post office to get it. And the fact that my request was first misplaced for a week, so it fell a week behind, and then you somehow, 2 weeks later, got a wrong address, so the request is still pending. So it's now like 4 weeks, and I'm still waiting for my mailbox key to be fixed. Again, postal workers, you're busy right now, I get it, but show a little more competence, please. And also, my other grievance is to my car, which 2 weeks ago I took it in to get a little work on the transmission because it was starting to go. And now today on my lovely way to work, it went out again, so I get to take it in again, hopefully for not too much money, but this car's a 2013 car with 75,000 miles on it.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell?
Yeah. Those are some good grievances, Giles.
Yeah,
That's what Festivus is all about.
This is therapeutic.
Yeah, it's what it's all about. The airing of grievances. This is what
Okay.
it's for.
So that's enough out of us windbags.
Yeah, we've done enough damage.
Wow, I haven't been this gassed since I had to talk by myself on the podcast a few weeks ago. Wow. If you couldn't tell, like at the 20-minute mark or something, I got really gassed. I had to stop for a second. Good Lord. Anyway, there were people who sent us their grievances on Twitter at GATGWildPodcast or to our inbox, Giles and the goalie at gmail.com. So we will read the person that emailed us to our inbox, Evan Riley. He says, "Hey guys, longtime listener, big fan.
Awesome.
He lives in New Zealand."
What?
Which,
Killer.
we have a listener in New Zealand.
Wow.
So he relies heavily on Twitter for wild news.
Sorry.
And this is where his first grievance comes from, and it kind of comes back to what we were railing on earlier, is Minnesota sports Twitter's kind of a black hole of negativity.
Yes.
So why do Wild and Minnesota sports Twitter always seem to be so negative? Go on a point streak and people still shit on them, play well, and they could have done better. It's a never-ending cycle of crap being thrown no matter how great they are playing. That's his first one, so we're going to answer that. There's a couple of points in here.
Gotcha.
He ends it soy boys for life. That's wonderful.
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah, and I can kind of speak to this. I am a sucker for being I get negative at times, but also since we've started interacting the last couple of years with Derek Peterson, State of Stats, he kind of inflicted kind of an attitude that I want to try to take on with sports, is seeing the positive in things.
Sure.
So that's why I keep coming back to the well that is the Minnesota Vikings. I just keep coming back because I'm a glutton for punishment.
Yes.
But for the actual question, why are people so negative, is because Minnesota hasn't won a title in anything since, or the 4 major sports teams haven't won a title since 1991. That was the Twins. That was over a quarter of a century ago.
Yeah.
And since then, we've had the most effing painful defeats in big games that you can possibly have. The Minnesota Vikings is a 30-30 against painful memories of how to absolutely lose in the most soul-crushing way.
Was it 0-5 in the last NFC Championship games?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was 1987, they lost on the last play of the game to the Washington Redskins.
Yeah.
There was 1998.
Let's not talk about it. 2001, 41 donut.
Yep. 2009.
The 12 men on the field.
Just
12 men in the huddle.
Run Brett Favre.
Yep.
Then 2017, following the Minneapolis Miracle.
Yes.
Just crushed. and as for like the Minnesota Wild, in essence, as to what Evan mainly follows, I'm guessing, is I think that kind of has to do with the fact that everyone is kind of tired of the Wild like we are, that they are Batman forever. It's the same story over and over. And the fact that there's really like no like star of stars on this team, it really doesn't provide for a lot of hope. So I can kind of see it, but I also do like to find the positive in things. I will not find a positive in Yul Eriksson's mustache, which we're looking at on the intermission
Why?
report.
Yul, why?
That's another grievance.
Oh, dude.
So I guess if people are just they're tired of being kicked, essentially.
Yes.
They're tired of being kicked in the rear end, and it's just a never-ending cycle of getting kicked in the rear end until a team in this town actually does win a championship.
Well,
and
so to your point, I don't mean to cut you off, but the Vikings, we talked about 0-5 NFC Championship games. The Twins literally set the record for consecutive playoff losses. The Wolves, what was it, 14 years without a playoff appearance? Or something like that. Literally the worst cumulative record in the NBA. Literally the worst franchise in the NBA as far as a pure wins-loss. And then you get to the Minnesota Wild, who have won 2 playoff series since 2003, I believe. So there is so much to be negative about. And not to say that you need to let that win, not to say you need to turn to the dark side. But I think you also have to be realistic as well. And I think there's a lot of negativity out there that's not realistic, but there's a lot of negativity out there that is realistic. And it's just that we've been let down so many times that it's just impossible for us to literally visualize success out of our sport teams. And, it creates for a very negative environment. And I think that everyone is aware of that. And nobody's really particularly happy with it. But it's just, and you and I haven't really talked a ton about our depression, but it's almost like having a fan base depression where you're only comfortable when you're miserable. And anything outside of miserable is outside of your comfort zone, technically. And that's the best analogy that I can make to the Minnesota sports. It's created an entire fan base with depression when it comes to, how we see our sports.
Right. And let me tell you, when the day comes when Minnesota sports finally wins a championship, like, you'll understand how I felt when Liverpool won the title this last year. The grass is very much greener on the other side. And it just felt like a weight literally is lifted off your shoulders. It's like the Steve Young, get the monkey off my back as he's winning the Super Bowl kind of a thing. But yeah, so that's hopefully a decent enough glimpse into why there's just so much misery But the second question he asks is, Russo on the Zucker payroll. It seems like Jason could commit mass murder and Rudo would still pump up his tires. Then he says, thanks, keep making the great art, Soy Boys for life.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for listening all the way from New Zealand.
That's crazy.
I think he just outdid Serious Mashup
Yeah,
for
you've been replaced.
most miles
Serious Mashup.
between us and them. But okay, I'll bat for Russo here.
Sure.
I think if you're talking more about like recently, like within the last year or so, I think there's a little bit of empathy from Mike because last year was a very difficult year for Jason Zucker,
to say the least.
and just as a human being, and I think we hit on this at some point, either early this year or late last year.
Well, several times, I think.
That when you're almost traded like 3 times, like that has a toll, and it is not an easy thing to. I can't speak to this, but you can only imagine. Like this isn't an easy thing to have to think about being traded and picking up your life and moving it to a whole new city, and
especially when your wife and family are local.
right. And Carly has made it kind of clear that if he is to be traded, she has to stay here. So he's kind of uprooted, and then he's separated from his family. So that's a very difficult thing to just even comprehend. Being away from Jamie and the dog is taxing enough when she goes to Iowa for a couple days.
Right.
Like, imagine doing that for months on end.
Yeah.
I don't. So I think that's maybe why he's had a little more like pump his tires recently. But I will say he does call him out too when he has a bad night. But
Sure.
I think again, if it was more recently, then that's probably why there's been a little bit more empathy behind the human aspect.
Well,
of
and I
it.
think on top of him just going through a lot, he is, from all indications, a fantastic guy.
Yeah.
Everybody who has ever met him personally and talked with him for more than 7 seconds raves about him. And that's not to say that he's untouchable by any means. We heard the same thing about Mike Yo. Not untouchable. You know what I mean? Like, great guy, and that's wonderful. But I think that also lends itself to a lot of defense from Michael Russo and other members of the Twin Cities media who have dealt with him. So I think that's part of it as well.
Yeah. And the Give 16 foundation that he does, that's something that by all accords is one of the better things you'll find, and a lot of good work is being done there. So that's probably another reason why. But again, I'm only speculating since we don't get that firsthand knowledge ourselves. We can only guess. Oh, man,
Sounds like a nice guy.
Tom's gonna be so mad at us.
He'll laugh.
He's still trying to get me to. Oh, he asks, why are we doing a podcast during a game this very important and very popular team is playing at a very normal time?
We have lives, Tom. We don't have any other time to do this.
Yeah.
And we just happen to work in the same building, which is handy.
So, again, this is from Evan Riley, Morpheus from The Matrix.
Yes.
On Twitter, which, oh boy, here we go. Why do you guys like hot dish so much? It's soggy potatoes in a dish. First of all, thank you for acknowledging it as hot dish. Now that we're in the winter season, me and my significant other love to argue about the fact that it's hot dish or casserole.
Yeah.
And she will not say hot dish. She will not utter those words. It is hot dish.
Does she say duck, duck, goose, too?
Yes.
Ugh, Iowans.
Yeah, as I said the other night, they're a weird lot.
They are.
But, okay.
I also want to correct him that it is not we that defend Tater Tot Hot Dish. It's just
me.
Giles. I very much went after Tater Tot Hot Dish, and this created a conflict between us. And I will defend it to the point where I think it's a mediocre dish. I don't think it's bad, as this fan is saying, but point taken.
This is why I like hot dish. I'm not one of those, people that have to have, food can't touch. I am a throw it all together and let's just have at it kind of a guy.
Animal.
Yeah, that's the point. And that's why I love
Someone
hot
here
dish.
is an OCD. It certainly isn't me.
That's why I love it. Like it's you get a little bit of everything. So like my favorite hot dish is tater tot hot dish.
Sure.
I love tater tots.
Yeah.
I love beef.
Yep.
And then my mom always did this for me because I wasn't the biggest fan of green beans. She replaced the green beans with peas.
Oh, okay.
So I had all that in there.
I've had recipes with both, I think.
Right. There's both, which it's still good. Like I like green beans in it too. Like I've
Sure.
grown up and
Yeah.
learned to eat more vegetables.
Sure.
So I like it. It's a little bit of everything, and it's delicious. If you cook it right, it's
Yeah.
delicious.
Yeah.
It's good food. I enjoy it.
It's all right.
And don't hate.
It's all right.
Don't hate.
Sorry.
I don't like you. I replied to that. How dare you? And I did tell him I will read this on air, and that was the first one I actually read on air.
Very nice.
So next one, our friend Joe Booley says the Wild were too quick to abandon the 3-beat Let's Go Wild.
Thank you.
Nordy and Game Ops should be embarrassed. Well, Game Ops has just been embarrassing for quite some time now, so
Yep. Par
not
for the
surprised that they
Par for the course.
And were you, when we went to the game in October, were you overly at all impressed with the
No.
Game Ops?
It was the
it's
exact
just
same
another
as any
change.
other game I've
I think
been
we
to.
talked about it.
We did. They promised some kind of upgrade, like it was suddenly going to be fun to go to a Wild game again,
No.
and that didn't happen.
I'm going to go to a fun venue in a couple weeks.
Yeah, that's right.
Our Golden Knights.
Mm-hmm.
Zeke Boyett chimes in. Wild should have drafted Cole Caulfield at number 12. This is a hill I will die on. Right shot sniper who seems to score at will. Just what Minnesota needs. Imagine him and Kaprizov on a power play unit together.
I'm with you, Zeke.
That's fair.
I'm with you, and I've been ragdolled a couple of times about the virtues of one Matt Boldy.
I mean, I still like Matt Boldy.
I do too, and I'm not saying that it was a terrible pick. I'm just saying I personally would have
Right.
preferred Caulfield, and that's
Boldy
just
or Caulfield would have been fine.
right. And
But-
and just and the part that bothers me is that Paul Fenton didn't draft him because he's short, and that's almost guaranteed because of the asinine comments that Fenton made after the draft about being so elated that tall players were walking up to the draft table.
When you said Guerin F&T'd, you weren't making a Bill Guerin pun, were you?
No, but that's a good idea. We should use that more often.
We're going to make that a hashtag.
Yes.
When Bill Guerin does something good, Guerin
F&T'd. So anyway, yeah, the part that bothers me is that I know Paul Fenton did not draft Cole Caulfield because he's, 5'8"?
Yeah.
Like, that is the reason. That is the reason why Cole Caulfield was passed on. And as you said, he's much more proven of a goal scorer. I'm here for all the Matt Boldy stands out there saying he's a great player. I'm with you. And I'm excited for his future, and I think that was a good pick. But that doesn't change the fact that I believe Cole Caulfield will be a better NHL player, or at least scorer, which is something the Wild have historically, not just right now at this moment, but historically not really had since Marian Gaborik, somebody who can really shoot like that. I don't know. I don't want to get too wrapped up on this, but I'm with you.
Johnson from Wisconsin asks, or not asks, sorry, this isn't a mailbag.
He's airing.
Yeah,
Yes.
he's
He
airing
airs.
grievance.
Yes.
He says, I think we should stop trashing Fenton, Fiala and Donato, the great draft, Zuccarello and Hartman. Give the man some credit. Come on, man. This isn't Monday Night Football yet. That's in a couple hours. Come on, man.
I think some credit is maybe fair. The
Yeah.
Donato for Coyle trade turned out okay-ish so
Actually
far.
looked, and Donato's points to 60 is actually pretty good.
That's
So-
what I said weeks ago when everyone was like, "Well, should he be sent out to Iowa?" No, he produces when he gets minutes.
Right.
But there were still some things that Fenton did. The Alex Stalock extension, like I said last year, and I
Yeah.
hit on, completely indefensible. The Victor Rask trade, you can point to the fact that Rask has more points than Nino right now, and that's some weird anomaly. He keeps getting healthy scratched, and if you look at any underlying stats whatsoever, it's not close.
Right.
And so that just kind of goes to show you, your points sometimes. Not saying points don't matter. I'm not one of those, people. Points sometimes can be a little bit fluky, and we just need to face that fact that you can point to the points all you want. Victor Rask is not a better hockey player than Nino Niederreiter, and the trade was straight up.
I think when all is said and done, I think history will remember the year of Fenton as a mixed bag. There's going to be some
That's fair.
good. There's going to be some bad with the the bad having a few more maybe egregious moves, but I'm not going to say it was terrible, and I think I'm more dog on him on this podcast because he's just a terrible human being. So,
yeah.
Which is ultimately the reason why he was fired.
Again, yes, and the draft, yeah, like you said, draft was pretty decent. I think the Anthony Potato pickup was horrific, but luckily, there was only so much damage that could be done there.
Okay, so watching the Winnipeg game the other day, the Wild got 2 breakaways on Anthony Potato. Why didn't you attack him more on the ice?
He's so terrible.
Anyway, moving on.
Yeah.
From NA, just a couple of obvious grievances. Dumba's season so far has been disappointing.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a grievance.
We talked about that at length last week.
My grievance is what could have been last year.
Mm-hmm.
Was expecting more for. I think that was tacked on to Dumba. Dubnyk, feel bad for the guy personally, professionally. Can only assume, what's going on between the ears.
Yeah, it's impossible to get in that guy's head and know what he's going through right now. You don't want to be a dick about it. So, you kind of have to give Devin Dubnyk a pass right now. And not to say that he's an elite goaltender and we should treat him as such. Right. He's not. He's very middle of the road in the NHL at best at this point. But I think that his situation is doing his professional life no favors whatsoever. And I think people need to recognize that.
And this was a good point that Russo made on his podcast last week that, everyone was so quick to dog Dubnyk after his performance in his first game back, specifically mishandling the puck. But it's like, he said it was like, think about it. He hadn't played in an actual game in 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah, over a month.
You just don't come back and pick this up. Mm-hmm. Having repetition and all that is crucial. Mm-hmm. And so just let's just cut him a little slack. Yeah. So. Then they finish with the non-existent Bruce Boudreau presidential gift library.
That's on
working
you.
on it.
That's on
working
you.
on it.
Okay.
I've started trying to sort them and file them in kind of different ways.
It's in the works, NHL player tracking.
I'm actually legitimately working on it. I will. I'm gonna spend some time in Iowa this weekend, so hopefully I will. Hopefully have
You'll
a little
have
bit of
nothing else to do.
A little bit of time. I'm actually gonna go see Star Wars. So.
Oh, okay.
He said he's also hoping for a high draft pick too. Yeah, that's one.
Join the club.
Jesse D says Victor Rask. That is all. Yep.
That's fair. Like we said, is he producing a little bit? Yes, he is producing a little bit, but I don't know that. I would be hard pressed to find a way that he does not get bought out this summer.
Yeah, we'll see. Moving on from T. Lore, I wish that they would just continue being absolutely terrible to get a high draft spot. This middle of the road, barely making the playoffs crap has to stop. I basically said the same thing at the top of the show.
That's fair, but that's no guarantee either.
Right.
Tanking, unless you're going to commit to the tank, which the Wild very clearly aren't doing, and would be very hard to do given the contracts and the no movement clauses on their team. Very, very hard to do. Very much easier said than done. Can they play bad for a stretch? Obviously, we saw that to start the season. But with the amount of talent on this team that literally cannot be moved, it's going to be really hard to tank to the level where they're going to get a top 5 pick, say.
Then Joe also chimed in that GD Patrick Kane scoring an effing hat trick against the Wild would have been okay with anyone else scoring a hattie, but it just had to be that douche nozzle.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah,
Patrick Kane sucks.
It's always a good grievance. And those are all the grievances. Mm-hmm. There's some good grievances in there.
Mm-hmm.
So, so that's the grievances.
That was a fantastic grievances, everyone. You should really pat yourself on the back. There's some good stuff in there.
That was therapeutic. I hope it was therapeutic for you listening to us.
I want to say Joe had another one.
I thought he did. It didn't show up.
Let me see if I can find it. It might have been
because I had to open it up on the actual Twitter page.
I believe it was in my mentions, so I saw it. Oh, maybe. This is fantastic radio right now.
Yeah. Bueller.
No,
Bueller.
I'm just not. Oh, here we go. On that note, why do we continue to get crowd chant? Coyotes
Yeah,
use
that was
it. Pretty sure the Islanders still use it. What is so goddamn sacred about the effing crowd chant that we had to go back to it? Abso-effing-lutely,
Game
Joe.
ups, baby.
Abso-effing-lutely. And the thing that pisses me off about crowd chant, and we went to it years ago, whatever. They went to Prince, and it was fantastic, and people couldn't figure out dancing to it because they're white, and I understand that. But then they have the biggest sham of an election since insert election joke here, and like, oh, here's
Too much
no politics. Back away. Vote for crowd chant or vote for, I don't know. I think it was I'm a Little Teapot. I'm not really sure, but it just didn't matter what that second song was because it was so obscure and so goofy. They're like, oh, we're just writing something different. It's like, no, you want crowd chant because all these tool bag people, the season ticket holders, complained about not being able to dance to Prince, which is kind of, an oxymoron when you think about it, that you just rigged the most rigged voting for crowd chant that ever was rigged. And it's just like, you did that for crowd, like you did that for the most mediocre fucking song you could find. And instead of, God forbid, giving people more than two options, I don't know, maybe that's just a thought, or I don't know, maybe giving us some new options other than this goofy song that nobody had ever heard of. Like, I don't know. That was so infuriating. Like, I'm a full-blown crowd chant hater, but I'm still even more upset with the process, how they got back to it, than the fact they actually brought it back, because it was such a sham and such an obvious pile of steaming bullshit from the wild.
Prince was Minnesota, and it was original. Nobody else had it.
No.
That's what made it good. And
it had
the song is good.
Right. And it had a tie-in. They used it for the 1996 Stanley Cup playoffs, and it was great.
Yep, but
God forbid.
Whatever. All right. We've aired enough. We're windbags, so before we have 20 other grievances to pop in our head, we're going to call it a show because I think we've long gone over an hour, so Tom's going to be mad and airing agreements with us about not keeping it to an hour. So, yeah. Thank you for listening this week. We hope it was, again, therapeutic. Have a good holiday season. We will be back next week to wrap the 2019 podcast calendar season with, I don't know yet. I might do some fun. We might do a little bit more emphasis on some decade in review stuff.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to get that content written up because I'm busy. The Bruce Pedro library is on the forefront of my mind, so I've been working on that in lieu of maybe writing something. But anyway, look for that next week. Follow Ben and I on Twitter at Ben Remington, at Giles Farrell. Podcast is at GATG Wild Podcast. Again, if you are interested in doing any kind of advertising with us, you can email us, gilesandthegoalie@gmail.com. Zonecoverage.com is where the podcast exists and where I write sometimes when I get around to it. Zonecoverage.com/wild. More specifically, GATG20 will get you 20% off a year's subscription to Zone Coverage if you're so inclined. SoundCloud, iTunes. If you listen on iTunes, please leave us a rating, good or bad. We reserve the right to ridicule it if it's bad, as heard earlier in the show. iHeartRadio, Google Play, Spotify is where you can find us at, and also zonecoverage.com. So that will do it for us this week, and we'll chat with you again next week.
So, boys for life.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Gill and the Goaltender podcast.
That's not resiliency. You're making it sound like we're good. That's all. I'm done.